evening, everyone, and welcome to the news tonight. I'm Tracy Shilshi, and in the next 30 minutes, I'll be getting you the details of all the stories that have made headlines today. But first, let's get you through the main headlines. Opposition turns the heat on Narendra Modi government, demands resignation of Sushma Swaraj. The BJP rallies behind the External Affairs Minister. Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar stirs controversy yet again, says the Indian Army lost its importance because it fought no wars in recent years. Opposition slams the remarks. Inflation stays in the negative zone for the 7th month in May, registers decline of 2.36% on the back of falling prices of food and fuel. Petrol prices are hiked by 64 paise, diesel is cut by 1 rupee 35 paise a litre, and prices to be effective from midnight tonight. Western nations react with anger as South Africa allowed the Sudanese president facing charges of genocide to leave after the African summit. Our top story, opposition parties led by the Congress strengthened their demand for the resignation of External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj in connection with the Lalit Modi visa issue. They're also seeking an explanation from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, though the BJP is defending Sushma Swaraj. Here are all the details.
Opposition parties turned up the heat on the Narendra Modi government on Monday. The Congress demanded the resignation of External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj for facilitating travel for former IPL chief Lalit Modi outside UK. Party leaders said her action cannot be defended on the grounds of humanitarian consideration.
It is not Sushma Swaraj who should only resign. Mr. Modi should sack Sushma Swaraj. Because Mr. Modi has said that he is the protector. He is the person who's getting black money from outside. Mr. Lalit Modi is a symbol of black money outside. And now Mr. Modi, through Mr. Sushma Swaraj, is protecting him. What is this?
प्रधानमंत्री जी हमें बताएं कि ललित मोदी जी की शिकायत की सिफारिश विदेश मंत्री जी ने जब की तो उनसे पूछ के की बिना बताए की.
According to British media, a senior Labour minister of Indian origin used the Swaraj's name to put pressure on the head of UK immigration to help Lalit Modi. Modi has been in UK since 2010. The IPL founder's passport was revoked following allegations of misappropriation of funds in the tournament.
एक प्रकार से अगर ये गलती हुई है तो कहीं ना कहीं जिसको मदद किया गया उसने धोखा दिया है और मुझे लगता है कि इसमें कोई ऐसा दम नहीं है जिस पर इतनी बड़ी बात कांग्रेसी उठा रहे हैं.
While the left saw it as an abuse of position, CPM General Secretary Sitaram Yechuri wanted the Prime Minister to tell Parliament how he proposed to address the matter.
The Prime Minister who has been talking and the BJP which has been talking very loudly about a new style of governance, minimum government and maximum governance, accountability, and I mean that there's been no corruption in the last 1 year. All these have been issues of propaganda. But when it actually comes to the brass tacks, you have this instance where the Prime Minister is absolutely quiet and silent.
Meanwhile, even as the BJP continued to support Swaraj, some opposition parties claimed the episode is a fallout of an internal war within the BJP.
ये मैं बार-बार कह रहा हूं कि दरअसल बीजेपी के अंदर गैंगवार शुरू हो गया है और गैंगवार में अगर आप देखें तो सुषमा स्वराज पर निशाना साधा गया क्योंकि सुषमा स्वराज बीजेपी की बहुत ताकतवर नेता हैं और प्रधानमंत्री पद के लिए भविष्य में एक बहुत बड़ी चुनौती भी बनकर उभर सकती हैं.
Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has also demanded the release of letters written to the British government on the Lalit Modi case. As Finance Minister, Chidambaram had asked the British government why it was not taking action against Modi. He had reportedly told Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, in 2013 that Britain should deport him as Modi's passport was impounded in India and his UK visa had run out. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, Lalit Modi reacted to the developments through his lawyer, who addressed the media a short while back, calling the reported blue-collar notice against his client a falsehood. He claimed that Lalit Modi was being targeted as a political vendetta.
As set out in the CRPC. May I ask these people who are very fond of saying the country wants to know, I want to know from you which court has declared Mr. Lalit Modi an offender. Please clarify this. Has there been any proceeding against him in any court of law which has declared him an offender? He is not an offender. He is staying with knowledge of everybody in UK by following the due process of UK immigration laws. The government of UK has allowed him to stay there because in the proceedings where Mr. Lalit Modi wanted and he prayed for continued stay in UK when his passport was revoked, the order of the first tribunal in UK immigration found and recorded that he is being persecuted in India and his passport has been unlawfully and immorally revoked. It's a favorite topic of media, some of the channels and even in print media, that a notice, blue corner notice against Mr. Lalit Modi was issued by some authorities in India. Let me tell you, the purpose of, if you go to CBI website, you will find it, and from Interpol also. The purpose of various notices are different. The blue corner notice is issued to know the whereabouts of a person.
All right, we yet to, of course, hear formally from Sushma Swaraj what, of course, was the entire controversy about. But she's not the only BJP minister under attack from the opposition. Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar also raising yet another controversy, saying that the Indian Army has lost its importance because it has fought no wars in recent years. The opposition was quick to pounce on it, calling his words an insult and demeaning to the armed forces. Here's more.
अभी कम हो गया इसका एक कारण है कि हम 40-50 वर्ष युद्ध देखे.
The Honourable Defence Minister speaks of the armed forces. Invitation again, knowingly or unknowingly, to another flurry of controversy.
पहले के जमाने में जब सेना के कमांडिंग ऑफिसर का कुछ भी खत आईएएस ऑफिसर जो कलेक्टर है या राज्य का कोई अधिकारी है उसको मिले तो इट इज टू रिसीव एन अटेंशन ऑफ हाईएस्ट ऑर्डर. अभी कम हो गया खत्म नहीं हुआ.
Already under fire over the delay in implementing the one rank, one pension scheme, the Defence Minister invited further criticism. Opposition parties were quick to term the statement anti-national. Others slammed it as disrespect to the heroes guarding our borders day and night.
इस सरकार में मंत्रियों का जुबान पर अंकुश नहीं रह गया है. वो कुछ न कुछ ऐसे कदम दे देते हैं, ऐसे बयान भी उनके आ जाते हैं जो शर्मिंदा करते हैं देश को.
ये इनह्यूमन, एंटी नेशनल वक्तव्य है. युद्ध होते हैं, सैनिक मरते हैं, जनधन की हानि होती है.
सेना हम रखते हैं अपनी रक्षा के लिए. सेना वेल इक्विप्ड हो ये मैं मानता हूं. सेना तैनात हो ये मैं मानता हूं. इस वक्त आज का माहौल में परंतु लड़ते रहना चाहिए बार बार, इसका क्या मतलब है?
Saying we haven't fought and that's why we are rusty, I think it's a bad aspersion on the Indian Army, Indian Navy and the Air Force, because they are all ready to go in once the country says, go ahead. We can't go for a war on our own.
But once again, Parrikar, for all his reputation of being a loose cannon, has got a word in defence from his own partymen. And once again, the plea is his remark was misinterpreted.
I think when the minister, when the defence minister makes that statement, he does this with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge that he has about the functioning, about the image of the armed forces while he's serving as a defence minister. I think it's a concern that will be shared with millions of other people.
It's been a series of off-the-cuff controversy-raising remarks from Manohar Parrikar in the recent past. His terrorist against terrorist comment had raised hackles, as have his quips on the one rank, one pension issue, among several others. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Yes, in fact, a group of former servicemen started their relay hunger strike in the national capital today, demanding immediate implementation of that one rank, one pension policy. The former soldiers have threatened to take their agitation to different parts of the country if the government does not announce a date to introduce the OROP scheme. Hundreds of retired army personnel held protests at Jantar Mantar yesterday on the issue. They also sought President Pranab Mukherjee's intervention. Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar has assured that the government will deliver on its promise, but he has asked them to be more patient and termed the protests as uncalled for.
हमने ये मुहिम जो शुरू करी है तो सिर्फ एक दिन के लिए नहीं थी। ये मुहिम अभी बहुत देर तक के लिए प्लान किया हुआ है। कल तो शुरुआत था रैली के साथ और आज से पहले से अनाउंस किया हुआ था कि हम रिले हंगर स्ट्राइक पे ऑलमोस्ट 55 सिटीज़ के साथ बीच में करेंगे और भी बढ़ सकती हैं। आहिस्ता आहिस्ता 100 सिटी भी हो सकती है, 200 भी हो सकती है।
In other news, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi reached Chhattisgarh today, where he took up issues confronting tribal residents. Meeting people in Korba district, he launched a direct attack against Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his model of development. Here's more.
Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi started a two-day visit to Chhattisgarh on Monday, pitching for forest rights for tribals. He slammed the BJP governments at the state and the centre while questioning their development model.
आदिवासी लोग जंगल से जुड़े हुए लोग होते हैं। उनकी जिंदगी जंगल से जुड़ी हुई होती है। आप जंगल से फल लेते हो, तेंदू पत्ता लेते हो, अलग अलग चीजें लेते हो। और अगर माइन आई और जंगल चला गया तो एक प्रकार से आपका हाथ कट गया। सही बात है, गलत बात? तो मोदी जी बड़े बड़े भाषण देते, कहते विकास, मगर मेरा ये सवाल है कि विकास होगा और होना चाहिए, मगर इस विकास में आदिवासियों के बच्चों का क्या भाग होगा, ये सवाल है।
Rahul also hit out at the NDA's land ordinance that omits the consent clause for farmers and carrying out a social audit before acquiring land.
अगर 5 साल में प्रयोग नहीं हुआ तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, एक बार जमीन ले ली तो ले ली, और सोशल ऑडिट तो छोड़ो। सोशल ऑडिट का क्या मतलब? अगर आदिवासियों से जमीन ली जा रही है तो ये इनकी जमीन है, उनसे पूछ के जमीन ली जाए, उनसे पूछ के ली जाए। और दूसरी बात, अगर विकास हो रहा है तो उसमें आदिवासी का भी विकास हो, उसमें आदिवासी भी शामिल हो।
Promising to uphold the rights of Jal, Jangal and Zameen for state residents, Rahul said his party will stand with the tribals just as it is doing with farmers. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
We'll slip into a quick break here, and still ahead, the Supreme Court cancels the All India Pre-Medical Test 2015 and orders a re-examination.
In dealing with a wanted fugitive, are so-called humanitarian considerations justified? Is the push for travel documents for him defensible? Watch the big picture at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Uttarakhand faced one of the worst flash floods in 2013. Nature unleashing havoc on the temple town of Kedarnath.
The million-dollar question now is that how can the pace of the rehabilitation work be expedited?
सरकार की तरफ से कुछ भी सुविधाएं नहीं, हम लोग तो ये महसूस कर रहे हैं कि आपदा हम पे 2 साल पहले नहीं, अब आपदा आ गई है।
On the second anniversary of the tragedy, RSTV brings you a special report. Uttarakhand floods 2 years hence.
Welcome back. Let's get to some more national news now. And many farmers' organizations came out in opposition to the changes in the land acquisition bill. This was while giving their representation to the Joint Committee of Parliament that's examining the bill.
Farmers' organizations once again voiced their concerns over the Land Acquisition Act amendments brought in by the NDA government.
On Monday, representatives of the National Alliance of People's Movement and similar organizations met the Parliament Joint Committee examining the bill and expressed reservations on the removal of consent clause and social impact assessment clause.
The social impact assessment and consent were the two clauses which created space for the affected people who are not just affected, who are real investors of land and everything attached to land in the development process. That space was granted to them, and now that is being denied.
किसानों की सहमति ना लेने की जो बात कही गई है उससे किसानों को बहुत बड़ा एक झटका लगेगा। किसानों की सहमति बहुत जरूरी है। हमने इन सब बातों को समिति के सामने रखा।
Others who appeared before the joint committee also suggested setting up of a farmers' land bank to smoothen the acquisition process.
जमीन लेना है तो सरकार के इस ढंग के इसके ये जरूरत नहीं है। किसानों की ये लैंड बैंक बननी चाहिए जिसमें परचेसर और सेलर किसान उन्होंने खुले दिल से लेना चाहिए, फोर्सिबली एक्विजिशन नहीं करना चाहिए।
हम इसका विरोध करते हैं इसलिए कि ये सारा कुछ किसान की ज़मीन को छीनने के लिए हमें लगता है ये किया जा रहा है, और किसान का जो हक है वो अगर ज़मीन से वो निकलना चाहता है तो उसका आदान प्रदान नेगोशिएट करके उसके साथ बात हो तो फिर तो चलता है।
A few more organizations will present their stand before the joint committee on Tuesday. The committee has to submit its report on the first day of the monsoon session of Parliament, which is likely to begin in the second half of July. Vishal Dahiya, Rajya Sabha TV, Delhi.
In other news, inflation remained in negative territory for the 7th month in May, registering a decline of 2.36%. The wholesale price index-based inflation was minus 2.65% in April. It has been in the negative zone since November 2014. Inflation in last May was 6.18%. Prices were subdued mainly on account of food items, fuel and manufactured goods. The lower inflation comes amid a forecast of deficient monsoon this year. But in contrast to the IMD's forecast of 12% deficient rainfall, the onset of monsoon has been reasonably strong so far. The CPI inflation inched up marginally in May to over 5% from 4.87% in the previous month. Meanwhile, public sector oil marketing companies today hiked retail selling price of petrol by 64 paise a litre. The price of diesel was, however, cut by 1 rupee 35 paise a litre. The new prices will be effective from midnight. The changes include state levies and will vary from state to state. After the price change, petrol in Delhi now will cost 66 rupees 93 paise a litre, while diesel will cost 50 rupees 93 paise a litre. The Supreme Court today scrapped the All India Pre-Medical Test 2015 and ordered a re-examination within 4 weeks. A two-judge vacation bench of the Apex Court directed the institutions involved to assist CBSE in reconducting the exam taken by over 6.3 lakh students. The court directive comes after complaints of leak of question papers and large-scale cheating with students getting answers in examination halls. The collegium system of appointing judges can't be revived even if the Supreme Court quashes the National Judicial Appointment Commission Act. The centre made this submission before the Supreme Court today. It came in response to the court's observation that the collegium system of appointing judges will be revived on its own if the top court strikes down the 99th Constitutional Amendment and the NJAC Act. Presenting arguments to supplement the government's submission, Solicitor General Ranjit Kumar told the court that judiciary cannot question the competence of Parliament to legislate. With that, let's get you more updates from across the country and nationwide. A Delhi court has extended the police custody of former Delhi Law Minister Jitendra Singh Tomar by 4 days. He is being investigated by authorities over alleged fake college degrees after he was arrested earlier this month. Police say Tomar is not cooperating in the investigations. Unidentified gunmen in the investigations. Unidentified gunmen dressed in army clothes shot dead a former militant in Sopore today. The victim was identified as Ejaz Ahmed Reshi, who was previously associated with the Harkat-ul Mujahideen. This was the 4th such attack in North Kashmir town in the last 7 days and the 2nd since yesterday. No militant outfit has claimed responsibility for the killings so far. A journalist in Uttar Pradesh's Pilibhit district was brutally assaulted on Sunday. Haider Khan was tied to a motorcycle and dragged for about 100 meters, allegedly for his report on dubious land deals. Police registered a case against 4 people and have started investigations. The attack comes just days after another journalist, Gajendra Singh, was allegedly set on fire during a police raid at his house in Shahjahanpur district earlier this month. Two people, including a minor girl, died while 5 others suffered injuries after an LPG cylinder exploded in the Kuli Bazaar area of Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh. 3 houses also collapsed from the explosion. The police launched a rescue operation with the help of locals. A forensic team is ascertaining the cause of the explosion. Time now for another short break. But on the other side, a top IS militant is killed in US airstrike in Libya. More on that when we come back.
Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first Prime Minister. And this is the building that became almost synonymous with his legacy.
Jawaharlal ji passed away in 1964, and we decided 2 things. First of all, that this whole complex would be the national memorial to Jawaharlal Nehru.
Watch it come alive in Nehru Memorial, Preserving Past, only on Rajya Sabha television.
Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News.
Every development worldwide impacts India. What happened overnight matters. Wake up to a complete roundup of world news. Keen analysis to kickstart your day. Watch Breakfast News, weekdays at 8 a.m.
Welcome back. Let's get you some international news now. In Sudanese, President Omar al-Bashir was on Monday allowed to return home unimpeded after attending a summit in Johannesburg. This even as a court case was going on in Pretoria over attempts to have him arrested on charges of genocide and war crimes. Here's more.
At their 25th summit in Johannesburg, African nation leaders meeting to chart out a development agenda only managed to invite the fury of the West. On Monday, South Africa allowed Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir to leave the country after the meet on the very day the Pretoria High Court was expected to decide if he should be handed to the International Criminal Court. Bashir is charged with war crimes and genocide. The court had on Sunday barred him from leaving the country.
President Bashir is participating in this summit on an invitation from the AU and a welcoming reception from the government of South Africa. And as you know that the summit, the African Union summit, has always been against the ICC and its indictment to African presidents, including President Bashir.
The US joined the United Nations in calling for implementing the ICC's warrant for Bashir's arrest. Bashir is accused of committing war crimes during the Darfur conflict. The UN says 4 lakh people in Sudan died and over 2 million fled their homes since fighting began in 2003.
The International Criminal Court's warrant for the arrest of President al-Bashir on charges of crimes against humanity and war crimes is a matter I take extremely seriously. The authority of the ICC must be respected and its decision implemented.
As a member of the ICC, South Africa is obliged to arrest anyone charged by the court. However, South Africa says it has granted diplomatic immunity to all summit leaders as standard international practice. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
A Chinese couple resurrected the giant Buddhas of Bamiyan with 3D projection technology, paying a unique tribute to the historic relics that were destroyed by the Taliban nearly a decade and a half ago. They unveiled the holographic statues on Sunday.
Destroyed 14 years ago by the Taliban, the 6th century Bamiyan Buddhist statues were briefly brought to life earlier this month. On June 6th and 7th, Chinese couple Zhang Xinyu and his wife Liang Hong used projections to bring back the Buddha's images for 8 hours. Excited locals sang and danced for the historic moment.
A very historical moment for us, and I think it's the moment that somehow reminds us of revival of our history, something that was destroyed during the Taliban time.
The couple used metal halogen lamps and added a quartz glass mask to the light source to avoid any possible damage to the relics. They also donated the lighting equipment to the local authorities, who will reproduce the images in March every year.
怕有这么微弱的一丝光能够照进巴米扬，能够照亮大佛。我觉得至少能够告诉我们，这个世界上还有这么一块美丽的地方。 而且还有这么悠久的历史和文化的存在，我们也希望能够通过这种光影技术，能够向历史和文化去致敬。
Built in 507 AD and 554 AD, the Buddhas represented the classic and blended style of Gandhara art in the Bamiyan Valley in the Hazarajat region in central Afghanistan. In March 2001, the Taliban destroyed them with dynamite on orders from their leader, Mullah Muhammad Omar. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Meanwhile, a top Islamist militant who ordered a deadly attack on an Algerian gas plant 2 years ago was killed in a U.S. airstrike in Libya. Libya says Mokhtar Belmokhtar was killed in the eastern city of Ajdabiya, but the U.S. is yet to confirm it. Belmokhtar's death has been, reported many times in the past. He was a former senior figure in the Al-Qaeda, but left to form his own militia. He gained notoriety with the attack on the gas plant in Algeria in 2013, when about 800 people were taken hostage and 40 killed, most of them foreigners. With that, let's get you some international news in Global Buzz. Britain's Queen Elizabeth and other royals gathered at Runnymede to commemorate the signing of the Magna Carta 800 years ago. A special U.S. delegation, including U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch, marked the anniversary with a service at the American Bar Association's memorial. In 1215, King John agreed to the Magna Carta at Runnymede after an uprising by his barons. The charter curbed the powers of the crown and laid the foundation for freedom as we know it. Hong Kong police arrested 9 people on suspicion of conspiracy to manufacture explosives. The arrest came in the same week when lawmakers are due to vote on a controversial political reform plan. However, police did not make a direct connection between the arrests and the vote, but said at least one of the suspects did belong to a radical group. Hong Kong has seen large-scale protests for greater democracy in recent months. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon called for an immediate 2-week humanitarian pause in Yemen to mark Ramadan, even as high-stakes talks got underway in Geneva to end the conflict. Ban Ki-moon said the truce should last for at least 2 weeks to allow life-saving supplies into the country. Nepal reopened hundreds of earthquake-damaged monuments and heritage sites today in order to draw visitors back, less than 2 months after 2 devastating tremors killed about 8,000 people. At least 743 monuments were damaged by the quakes that struck Nepal on the 25th of April and the 12th of May, including centuries-old temples, monasteries and palaces listed as World Heritage Sites by the UNESCO. At least 27 people, including 4 suspected Boko Haram Islamist militants, were killed, while 100 others wounded in 2 attacks in Chad's capital, N'Djamena. The attacks included at least 1 suicide bomb. They are the first of their kind in Chad, which is an oil-producing nation and a major Western ally which has spearheaded offensives on Al-Qaeda-linked groups in Mali and on Boko Haram in the neighboring Nigeria. And that's all we have for you on the news tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. The news continues after this break.